Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome. Hello. Hi. Welcome to the 2025 annual meeting of the American Board of Genetic Counseling. I'm Priyanka, HEMA's current ABGC board president. We're just going to leave a few seconds for people to trickle in. We really appreciate you all taking the time from your busy schedules to join us in taking a look at the events of this past year, and to learn about our ongoing initiatives and plans as we move forward to 2026. So thank you for being here. With that, I'd like to officially call the ABGC Annual Meeting to order. Our agenda for today will be an introduction of our board members and staff, a review of the ABGC exam information and statistics, updates on our 2024 year-end audit report, and 2025 and 2026 operations budget. And we'll leave some time at the end for questions, which you can submit through the Q&A using Q&A function in Zoom, but you can do that throughout the webinar, so feel free to just pop your questions in the Q&A. So let me start by introducing the executive officers that have served you at ABGC this past year. As president, it's been a privilege to serve this year, and I've been one of the directors for the past 4 years as well. Melanie Hardy has been on the board for 3 years and currently serves as president-elect. And Vivian Pan has been on the board for 3 years and currently serves as secretary-treasurer. I also wanted to personally thank each of the directors for all of their work performed on behalf of ABGC. The board of directors volunteer their time to guide our organization in addition to holding full-time jobs. The time and effort that each board member puts in is really driven by their desire to improve our certification exam, our processes, and our diplomate offering. Thank you all so much for your commitment to our profession and to ABGC. I look forward to rolling into the immediate past president position and continuing to work with all of you. And finally, our headquarters staff is the team that works so tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure a smooth exam experience. Thank you all for the hard work that you've provided on behalf of the board, diplomates, and candidates. The next item on our agenda is really the crux of what we do as an organization, which is certification. So I'd like to spend some time going over our 2025 certification data. ABGC has an ongoing commitment to address barriers to certification. We are absolutely committed to continuing to increase the number of certified genetic counselors and to make sure that's done in an equitable and accessible way. In 2020, we approved new exam eligibility criteria, which was enacted in June 2021. The new criteria basically eliminated the number of attempts that someone could make to sit for the ABGC exam and extended the period of time in which new graduates can be classified as active candidates. So far, the changes have been met with favorable reviews by individuals in our profession as they allow for people who have not successfully achieved certification to be offered the opportunity to become certified if they wish to be. ABGC also made the decision to reduce the CGC exam fees for initial and reapplications beginning in 2024. This effort was in conjunction to increase access to the CGC exam for all candidates. So just some statistics about our certification exam in 2025. We had 846 test takers in 2025. 633 of those were first-time test takers who had a 78.9% pass rate. Excuse me. We also had 213 repeat test takers with a 53.05% pass rate. 140 candidates in total of these utilized the live remote proctoring option. So the next slide breaks this down a little bit more by each exam window in 2025. So the February 2025 exam window had 236 test takers. 138 of those were first-time test takers, resulting in a 53.62 pass rate. We had 98 repeat test takers with a 40.81% pass rate. The overall pass rate for the February exam cycle was 51.69%. The August 2025 exam window had 611 test takers. 496 of them were first-time test takers, resulting in an 86.06% pass rate, and 115 of them were repeat test takers with a 63.48% pass rate. So the overall pass rate for the August exam cycle was 81.8%. In the next slide, the graph shows the historical data from pass rate data the CGC exam from 2021 to 2025. ABGC completely recognizes that there has been fluctuation in exam results following the implementation of the new job analysis and content outline in 2023. We continue to monitor the exam performance and have seen an overall increase in the 2024 and 2025 first-time test taker pass rates. As we will discuss further in this meeting, there have been additional insights that will be noted in the Exam Performance Task Force report, as well as efforts from the CGC Study Guide Task Force that were put together this year. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But first, I'd like to ask Vivian Pan, our ABGC treasurer, to share some updates on the ABGC financials.
Thank you, Priyanka. So I'm happy to present our 2024 audited financial report and our 2025 and 2026 operating budgets. So before we dive in, I just want to provide some additional context. So every year, ABGC undergoes an independent financial audit review that's conducted by an external auditing firm. This audit, which is completed every summer, is best practice for nonprofit organizations like ourselves to make sure that there's transparency and accountability with our finances. So this audit shows the actual, like what actually happened in that year, while the budget is our plan for the 2025 and 2026 years. So next slide. So I'm going to start with our overall financial health in 2024. Like I mentioned, this is the audit that was conducted in this past year. So in 2024, we had a total revenue of approximately $1.1 million and around the same expense for $1.1 million as well, with a total net gain of around $70,000. So here's the interesting part. So in 2024, we actually approved a deficit budget. In other words, we had planned to spend more than we'd earned from operations that year. But thanks to a really strong investment performance of around $180,000, we actually ended the year in the black. So our net asset actually grew from $2.7 million to around $2.8 million. So for those of you who are doing some quick math, you'll notice our reserve and investment funds are around $1.5 to $2 million. So this is an operating budget of about $1.1 million, and so about 18 months of our operating expenses. So we very intentionally at ABGC separate our finances into two buckets here. So there's the operating budget, so the about $1.1 million a year, that really covers our day-to-day operations, right? And it's mostly funded by our exam and recertification fees. And then we have our reserve and investment funds. So that's about the $1.52 million that I mentioned. This is our financial buffer, right, that we really don't rely on for operations purposes. So our investments are professionally managed by an investment firm that operates under an ABGC approved guideline. So to make sure that we do have oversight and have appropriate risk management strategies that they're following. So the reason why we do this and we do the separation is a very strategic decision, right? So having this reserve means that number one, our operations don't depend on investment performances, right? So the market tanks, we're okay. It also means that we can make strategic investments back to our diplomates. So for example, in 2023, 2024, and you'll see in 2025, we very intentionally approved deficit budgets to invest in our diplomates without jeopardizing any core operations. Turns out that our investment did well, so we're in the black anyways. But that was very intentional, and that buffer allows us to do that. And the other thing is that this reserve really protects us against any revenue disruptions, right? So if exam numbers dropped unexpectedly, for sure, for example, we'd have a runway to adapt to any changes. So, in other words, we're really deliberate in being conservative in our budgeting. We don't count on investment gains every year as we do our budgets, even though they've consistently materialized. So, this allows us to invest more strategically in our profession while maintaining financial stability. Next slide. Okay, so here's in 2025, again, we approved a deficit budget of $81,000. And just like 2024, we're on track to perform better than budgeted because of our investment performance. We don't have the final numbers yet because the year has not completed yet. So this strategic investment in our the deficit budget is really, really intentional. And of course, that decision is not made lightly, right? And some of the things, for example, that we've invested in are things like the CGC Needs-Based Scholarship Program. And the intention of this is to expand access to our certification. We've also invested in some innovations, including the continuing competence learning scenarios, as well as the ABGC NSGC bridge, which allows your CEUs from NSGC to automatically transfer into the ABGC portal, and the CGC digital certificates. Next slide. So as you can see in these charts, our revenue comes primarily from our exams and recertification fees. So this is really the financial foundation of ABGC. And our largest expenses are around administering the certification exam and for a management company that really runs our day-to-day operations. This also reflects the adjustments that we've made as we change our fee structure, as Priyanka mentioned, in 2023, where we decreased the exam fees while we very modestly increased the recertification fees. So all of these decisions were about increasing access to our certification, particularly for new graduates. Next slide. And the last slide that I have is the 2026 operations budget. So in November this year, we approved the operations budget for 2026. And I'm glad to report that our budget is returning to balance. So this will conclude our 3-year strategic investment period. And we hope to maintain really healthy financial position while we continue to serve our diplomates. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you all have as well. As you see here, we're going to continue our CGC Needs-Based Scholarship as well. And I think that's it. I'll turn the meeting back to Priyanka.
Thanks, Vivian. I'd like to take a couple of minutes for these next slides to really review ABGC's key accomplishments this year. Recently, we launched the ABGC NSGC bridge that will automatically populate NSGC-approved CEUs that diplomates earned as of January 1, 2025, directly into your recertification application. So this innovation doesn't require diplomates to account for those CEUs or upload any supporting documentation. If you're not sure if your accounts have been verified, please email info@abgc.net and our staff will review that for you. I'm happy to announce that as of today, there have been 13,176 CEUs transferred through this bridge. So hopefully that has made the process easier. We also released the first annual CGC candidate demographic report. Beginning in, you may recall we had sent out an announcement about this, but beginning in May 2024, exam candidates were invited to share demographic information during the application process, which is completely optional. They could include their data if they wanted. And this report includes data from 2 exam cycles, August 2024 and February 2025, and really reflects responses from 646 first-time and repeat candidates. ABGC will continue to release a report on candidate demographics each year, And this data will offer a comprehensive picture of who's becoming certified genetic counselors. We really hope that it complements existing workforce data and provides unique insights into the growing diversity of new professionals. And then we very recently released a CGC study guide, which was created with an immense amount of care to support candidates as they prepare for the CGC exam. And we hope that it will help candidates feel informed, encouraged, and supported as they sit for the exam. In the guide, candidates can also expect to find current ABGC resources to assist with test preparation and understanding the testing process, a summary of test development and item writing procedures to just better understand how items are written, an overview of the cognitive levels used to construct exam questions, a breakdown of the exam content domains and subdomains, including knowledge statements with recommended resources, a sample test with questions for each domain and cognitive level, a comprehensive list of syndromes and disorders, and a personal reflection readiness checklist that candidates are encouraged to take as part of the study guide. So it's really designed to be a helpful companion throughout a candidate's preparation and offers insight into the structure of the exam. It was released earlier this week and is available for free on the ABGC website under the Certify tab, if anyone wants to take a look. ABGC maintains a strong commitment to transparency, equity, and fairness in all aspects of the certification process. And as part of this commitment, the board of directors convened the Exam Performance Task Force in 2024 with a clear and thoughtful charge to really carefully examine the many factors that we know are probably influencing performance on the ABGC certification exam. So over the past year and a half, the task force has conducted a pretty comprehensive review of the CGC exam's historical pass rates, exploring year-over-year trends, differences across exam forms and cohorts, and patterns among both first-time and repeat test takers. They also explored multiple factors that could potentially influence exam performance, examining trends using existing data, as well as identifying gaps, and highlighting opportunities for future data collection analysis that could really help us better understand some of the pass rates that we've been seeing. The task force careful review really reflects a strong commitment to understanding the exam experience and considering both internal and external factors that may affect candidate performance. We're very pleased to share that the findings are now compiled in this final report, and it presents meaningful insights, forward-looking recommendations, and some really thoughtful areas for continued inquiry that are really aimed at fostering ongoing improvement and strengthening outcomes for every exam candidate. We are expecting this report to be released this week, so very shortly. Please be on the lookout for that. ABGC could not achieve our strategic goals without the diplomates who volunteer for our committees and task force. We have had volunteers representing a wide variety of individuals who work endlessly with commitment and passion. And I truly want to thank each of our volunteers for all that you've done on behalf of ABGC. Your efforts really elevate ABGC and in turn the field of genetic counseling. It's important that you know that you've made a real difference. So thank you. I'd now like to take a moment to really delve into the work of individual committees and task forces within ABGC to really show diplomates what our committees have been working on. We'll start off with the Certification Exam Committee. This committee really serves as the backbone for our certification exams and is chaired by Katie Dunn. As with previous years, the committee reviewed, approved, and launched 2 new exam forms for administration. This year, the committee also formed the task force to create the study guide that I mentioned earlier, which was a huge task. The next committee is the Continuing Competence Committee, which is chaired by Monica Marvin and Claire Davis. The purpose of the Continuing Competence Committee, or CCC, is to ensure that the CGC designation signifies competence throughout a genetic counselor's career. As the practice of genetic counseling is continually evolving, ABGC CCC is really charged with exploring how changes in practice influence competence and related recertification processes. So the committee has examined the strengths and weaknesses of the current recertification process and has identified improvements that will better support genetic counselors as we keep pace with changes in the field. They developed a new learning activities or scenario. We launched a pilot of the new CCC program in 2025 and continue to work on the full suite of 5 scenarios that will be launched in 2026 as part of the updated recertification program for those diplomates that have a new recertification cycle beginning in January 1, 2026. And remember, the CEUs for those scenarios are free. Thank you to the CCC and the EC committee, all the volunteers who have worked on those committees. Thank you all so much. Moving on to the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Justice, or DEIJ committee. This is a committee that we had formed in 2023 and is dedicated exclusively to looking at the certification process, the recertification process, and the organization as a whole through a DEIJ lens. And it's chaired by Josie Baker. In 2025, the committee also awarded 42 needs-based certification scholarships to candidates who were sitting for the exam. They established partnership in the North American Genetic Counseling Organization, or NACO, specifically around DEIJ efforts across organizations. And they will also serve as a secondary review body for all the learning scenarios that are put out by the CCC. Our hope is that this review will assess whether the learning scenarios, including all associated questions, uphold the values of diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. So thank you, Josie, and all the volunteers of the DEIJ committee for everything that you've done. The next committee is the Item Writing Committee. The committee consisted of 18 item writers and serves under the leadership of the Certification Exam Committee, or CEC, that was chaired by Katie Dunn. The Item Writing Committee authored 127 items during their fall item writing campaign. Thank you to all the volunteers of the Item Writing Committee. And then next we have the Practice Exam Committee, which is responsible for our practice exams. They recruited 5 new item writers this year, and their item writing efforts are currently underway with the goal of authoring 70 new practice exam questions for review in early 2026. And just as a reminder, we will be launching a new practice exam in June of 2026. So look out for that as well. Thank you so much to all the volunteers of the Practice Exam Committee. And then finally, we have the Nominating Committee, which is an essential committee that contributes to the work of our organization. They are the group that's responsible for reviewing, interviewing, and developing a list of candidates to appear on your annual slate, and was chaired by Dina Alaidin. Thank you to this committee for your enthusiasm, care, and insights with navigating applications, interviews, and keeping us moving forward. Thank you to everyone who nominated a colleague, nominated themselves, submitted an application, agreed to an interview. I know it's a lot of work, but you all do amazing work, and the committee was astounded by the drive, attention, and just commitment to the profession in the applications that we received. Truly, the success and composition of our board is very diplomate driven. So in the future, please do consider nominating yourself or someone who you feel represents the field and has the passion and commitment to really contribute and serve ABGC. Um, so as I mentioned before, ABGC has really, you know, maintained a strong commitment to improving transparency, equity, and fairness in all aspects of the certification exam process. And as part of this commitment, the board of directors convened the Exam Performance Task Force in 2024 to carefully look at all the different factors that could potentially be influencing performance on the ABGC certification exam. Um, so the task force has done a pretty comprehensive review exploring year-to-year trends. And as I said, that report should be released very soon. And then finally, I just wanted to acknowledge here are some of the pictures of some of our volunteers. A very sincere thank you to each and every one of you. Of course, we couldn't fit everybody into these slides, but here's just a handful of them. And again, our sincere gratitude for all the work that you have put in. We know it's a lot of hours on top of what you're doing for your day jobs. And then before we move on, I'd like to spend a few minutes to provide an overview of the new continuing competence learning scenarios that were piloted this year. So as you all know, we launched the pilot for the learning scenarios pretty recently as an effort to improve the recertification process. Some of the things to just be aware of are the definitions in terms of the terms that are being used. So competence describes a person's potential to perform a role by drawing on relevant knowledge, skills, and abilities. Genetic counseling is an evolving field such that the definition of competence changes over time. And this really requires CGCs to be able to incorporate emerging and existing evidence into their roles. Competency refers to a skill or an ability that can be performed. And continuing competence refers to competence that's achieved through lifelong learning and professional development. Next slide, please. So the question that we had was, should we be approaching this differently? The board of directors really reviewed the published study from the Institute of Medicine and the National Academies called Redesigning Continuing Education in the Health Professions, which was published in 2010. And, we also looked at ABGC CEU guidelines, performed a roundtable discussion of how other organizations were addressing recertification as continuing competence, and then put together the Continuing Competence Task Force, which who's charged with reviewing recertification processes and making recommendations for changes in our recertification process. And that led to the formation of the Continuing Competence Committee, who are now charged with developing learning assessment for continuing competence. So the guidework that was used, the guidework that was used for, the framework that was used to guide ABGC's new recertification process really was to create a program that allows diplomates to demonstrate that they can remain competent to perform genetic counseling after passing the certification exam. So it was centered on learning, not evaluation, which has been done in the past. And so it's not a high stakes, it's not high stakes like an exam, and is really meant to ensure that continued competence exists in an evolving practice landscape such as ours. It's also really meant to maximize flexibility. So we wanted to make sure that we were minimizing barriers like cost and time, as well as offering alternatives to what is currently in existence, such as conferences and things like that, that not everybody can necessarily attend. And we wanted to make sure that it was applicable to genetic counselors who are working in a variety of settings and specialties and not just sort of the more mainstream settings. And then the last sort of framework, the guiding principle that we used was that we really wanted to enhance accessibility and to minimize burden. We recognize that the ability to retain and earn CEUs is difficult. So just acknowledging that can be difficult, and allowing diplomates to earn CEUs through this program, making it easier for them to do that for licensure requirements was something that we were very aware of as we created this program. So the actual scenarios are a series of authentic genetic counseling scenarios where the course of action is considered to be ambiguous and varies based on situational factors. Participants are given a scenario with some background, and they then proceed through a series of questions, each of which is preceded by a new piece of information, and then they're asked to reflect on the best course of action given the new piece of information. They also get to compare their responses with those written by genetic counselors who are referred to as panelists in these scenarios. Next slide. So, what does the requirement for the new recertification look like for 2026? We will be launching 5 scenarios in 2026. Diplomates are not required to complete them all at the same time. And everyone who completes a scenario will earn zero point 0.1 CEUs for each scenario at no cost. Diplomates will only need to earn 12.5 CEUs in their entire certification cycle, so that hasn't changed. There's been no increase in the number of CEUs required to recertify. And all CEUs that are earned will count towards state licensure requirements. So beginning January 1, 2026, diplomates whose recertification cycle begins on January 1, 2026 will enter their mandatory recertification component to complete 25 learning scenarios. That's 5 scenarios for each year. To complete by their expiration date on December 31, 2030 to maintain their CGC certification. Okay, so with that, I'm going to hand it over to President-elect Melanie Hardy to give you all a sneak preview of what's to come in 2026 and to introduce you to our 2026 Board of Directors.
Thank you, Priyanka. So as you all can see, it takes a village to keep ABGC running, and I'm very happy to introduce you to your ABGC Board of Directors for 2026. So first, your executive committee includes myself. I'll be serving as president, President-elect Amy Shikani, and Secretary-Treasurer Sharon Chan. In addition, we have our other directors. So Priyanka will be moving into the immediate past president role. We also have directors Christy Hale, Vivian Pan, Daria Ma, and Catherine Smith, and our public member, Kathy Baker. And back to you, Priyanka.
Thank you, Melanie. As we finish up the meeting, I would like to take a moment to thank our outgoing board members, Angie Trepanier and Greg Ruff. We are so immensely grateful for your vision, leadership, knowledge, and contributions to ABGC over the many years. We are a much better organization because you're a part of it. So thank you. And finally, I would again like to share my appreciation for allowing me to serve as ABGC president this year. It's been a great privilege to give back to the community, and I'm very excited to see where the board will take the organization next year. We'd like to round out our meeting by taking some of the questions submitted. And feel free to put them in the chat.
So Priyanka, there's a question that states, If we take learning scenarios before our next research cycle starts, will those be able to be counted towards the 25 needed in the research cycle? I'm happy to take that if you'd like.
Yeah, please go ahead, Heather.
Great. This is a great question. Beth, I appreciate you asking this. So if you are currently not in your mandatory research cycle, so the scenarios won't transfer over to a new cycle. So anything that you take now, so I guess let me give you a hypothetical. You're due to recertify in 2027. You'll have the ability to answer 5 scenarios in 2026. You can earn those CEUs. They'll be used for your current research cycle, but when you transfer over to your 2027 to your 20, if I'm doing my math right, 2031 cycle, you'll get an entirely new set of 25 learning scenarios. So it's a way for them to not be counted twice. And I hope that answers the question that you asked. Please let me know if I did not. And it looks like the board is responding to one question. I appreciate it, Beth. Sorry if that was a little convoluted. The board is responding to one question in writing, Angie. I don't have any others in here, but we do welcome, oh, great, another one. It says, it looks like the exam pass rate for repeat test takers has consistently been declining after 22. Any insights into why that could be?
Yes, so I think that was something that our exam performance task force was charged to look into. So I think their report will have some insights that probably takes a lot of different factors into consideration. I don't know, Heather, if you wanted to add more to that.
I would say no, we don't have any direct correlation data. And it's unfortunate that the simple fact of sometimes multiple repeat testing usually does decline. That repeat test taker pass rate over time does not mean that people don't pass on a repeat attempt, but that is something that we will continually look into in the future and provide that information to diplomates. There is another great question asking, do we know how many people applied for the needs-based scholarship, and what was the success rate for the applicants, and then are these full or partial scholarships? So I can answer that if you would like as well, Priyanka, or
yeah, I was going to ask if Vivian wanted to answer as part of the DIJ
sure.
Committee.
There, you can go ahead. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me.
Okay.
Sorry,
so,
Vivian, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
So the second part of the question is the scholarships were full. So we paid in full. If you were a repeat test taker or a first-time test taker, your entire application fee was paid in full. The number of people that applied for the scholarship, I don't have it at the tip of my fingers, but I want to say it was somewhere around 70-ish, if not maybe a little bit more. So it was a large group of people that we were able to provide the funding for them to take their exam.
And I think we recently looked, and the success rate is around 60 to 70% of folks who were able to fund, I believe.
Yes, somewhere right around there, Vivian. Yeah, correct. And Whitney has a question about the example I gave about the learning scenarios is if you do scenarios in 2026 and 27, will they count towards your CEUs that you gain, but they aren't required, right? Correct. Depending on when, so CEUs right now, the learning scenario completion is not required for most of the diplomates, other than those that will start their recertification cycle on January 1, 2026. Those are the first set of ABGC diplomates that will enter into this mandatory component. Then our next set will be those that have a restart start date of January 1, 2027, and so on and so forth, until eventually, after 5 years, every diplomate will be in a mandatory component. If you are not in that mandatory component, you can complete these and still earn free CEUs. So you still have the ability to do that and to gain it, and then hopefully save a little bit of funds by doing this component as a CEU alternative. And these CEUs are also approved for licensure as well. So they are approved through NSGC. There's another question, is can you discuss plans to offer more practice exams or longer practice exams to reflect the actual 200 multiple choice questions?
Yeah, I'll let you take that, Heather. Or if Amy's on, I wonder if she would want to add anything to that, being part of the CC.
I can add, and Heather, correct me if I'm wrong. So, as the board shared, the creation of a brand new practice exam is underway. I believe that the plan is for that completely new practice exam to launch in 2026. Is that right, Heather?
That is correct.
Okay. And as far as a longer exam, beyond the 100 question practice exams, I don't think there is currently any plan to make a practice exam longer. These practice exams take a lot of effort to make, and they don't go through the same scrutiny that the live exam goes through for obvious reasons. I would also point out that there are additional practice questions on the candidate guide, and so that will also provide some additional practice questions for candidates as well.
Yeah, I wonder if you could take the next question as well.
Yeah, so Amy, the CGC exam reference list now has only the third edition of a guide to genetic counseling listed. As there are differences in content between the second and third editions, does this mean that the questions on the exam that relate to the second edition have been removed from current versions of the exam? This is for training programs to guide how we approach teaching.
Yeah, I can address that one as well. So any question that's on the live exam has a reference directly linked to our approved reference list. So if a question was previously referenced to the second edition and that is no longer an accurate reference for that question, then it will have been re-referenced. If that is to a different source, then that would be the case, or it's also potentially a question that would have been removed if there was no alternative reference on our approved list.
Great. We don't have any other open questions. We want to give maybe a minute or so to see if anyone has any remaining questions for us. We'd be happy to wait for you to be able to type in your question. All right. Question is there any consideration for reduced fees for retired GCs?
That's an interesting question. It's not something we've really discussed, but happy to bring that to the board to consider the next year. I'm assuming this is for recertification or like certification maintenance.
Yeah, I think if you could provide maybe, is this with regards to someone who's retired and is still wanting to pay their CMF fee? Is that what we're talking about? Or is this, yeah, I guess just a little clarification. Yeah, we'd be happy to discuss that as a board overall. Yes, for maintaining certification. Perfect. Thank you so much for clarification. We will go ahead and take that up as a discussion this coming year. So there's a question. Thank you, Jessica. Is there any other insight you can share regarding the very low pass rate in February?
Truly, none that, yeah, nothing that we can, that we're aware of. We looked at a number of different things, including accommodations for the exam. We looked extensively, item by item, at the exam itself, and it was the same form that was used the previous year in August 2024. And the pass rate that time was very different. So truly, are at a bit of a loss as to why the pass rate was so low. Um, and there were sort of anchoring items between the two exam forms that did show that the candidates in the February 2025 exam did perform lower on those items. But we really have no solid conclusions about the low pass rate. Sure. Okay. I think if there are no other questions, let's
Oh,
see, there's one
one
more.
more. Okay. Access to the third edition of the Guide to Genetic Counseling is limited. The publisher has not granted a license for institutions of higher education to obtain an ebook. Physical copies of the book are also sold out. While this is not an issue for ABGC, this is the only book on the reference list difficult to obtain. Wanted to understand if the organization can assist to make this more widely available.
I'm not sure. I wonder if there's licensing issues that we have to take into consideration, but again, happy to discuss it as a board if there are things that we can do.
Yes, and I think also on behalf of the CEC and Amy and the board, we can also, as a committee, just have another discussion about that book. While it's a great use for reference, we now understand there are some external factors that might be affecting the use of it. So we'll continue to take a look at that. We're certainly open to having that discussion. Another kind of comment, is it possible that those taking in the exam in February are also working and have less time to focus on studying as those taking in August? And also possibly they are working in specialty and therefore struggle more with other areas tested on the exam.
It is. It is definitely possible. I mean, we tend to have lower pass rates in the February exam cycle in general. And also there are a higher number of people who are retest takers. Correct me if I'm wrong, Heather.
That is correct. And I do think that I'm very happy that the exam performance task force report is going out this week. It does delve into some aspects of that or some additional recommendations for further research on specific this topic of candidates that test in February versus candidates that test in August. We certainly know there are different factors with regards to studying and things like that that might get in the way. So, and it looks like Maureen just has a comment that their library researched the use of the new textbook and the publisher is not allowed electronic licensing or institutional purchasing yet. So thank you, Maureen, for posting that.
Well, thank you all for attending and for all of volunteers. Thank you for your hard work with ABGC. We really appreciate it. With that, we'll conclude the annual meeting. We wish all of you a very happy and safe holiday season. Take care and wish you all a new year as well. Happy New Year as well.